Okay, so it's 12 noon, we'll start. So our next talk will be about the well-renowned project VLC by the founder and president of the VideoLAN Association, the VideoLAN organization. Please welcome Jean-Baptiste Kempf.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me? Please come and sit. Okay, ça c'est sûr. Please come and sit. Don't stand up in the aisle. As often, I come and talk about some updates about the VideoLAN project and mostly VLC. And I'm going to speak about what's going to happen next. So for those who don't know, I think that's getting less and less people in this room. I'm the president of the VideoLAN nonprofit, and I've been working on VLC since Mo left, basically. So we're going to speak about VLC. Just a few slides about VLC 3.0, which is going to be released on Tuesday, and probably Thursday for the time we do all the building. For those who don't know, just a few slides about what the fuck did we finally put on VLC 3.0. I believe I come like for the last 3 or 4 years saying we'll do that in 3.0. And it's going to ship next, whatever. And of course it didn't. But actually now we are the release candidate 8 or 9. So it's actually happening and it's already packaging the good distributions. So 2.2 was Weatherwax, was a very stable release, which helped us to get a lot of work on 3.0 because people were not bitching too much about the stable one, which allowed us to do a lot of stuff. But see, when you look at it, it's quite old. We forked it in 2015. So 3 years later, we're going to actually work on 3.0. We had around 200 million downloads on our website, so that, of course, outside the Linux distribution and outside all the corporate environments. So that gives you a good idea of the desktop size of VLC on Windows and Mac, which is good. Not that many regressions. The biggest issue we had was, of course, 4K and UHD coming. Well, coming soon since HEVC is almost dead. Thank you, everyone. So 3.0, just a few numbers and ideas. We're talking about 18,000 commits on VLC core, around 3,000 for each of the mobile ports, which is Android, iOS, and UWP, which is quite big. It was, of course, too long to come, but it's a very strong release. And the reason why it took so much time was we are going to finally have one release for all the platforms with the same name, same number, right? So many of our users don't understand because it's, so, of course, so logical that the version on iOS is 2.8.5 and the version on Apple TV is 1.1 and Android is at 2.5 something. I mean, no one understands anything. So we're moving to a way that the first number is actually the core version. So next version is going to be VLC 4 and so on, and the mobile ports and can have different release schemes. But at least for the users, they understand that the big number is the support of formats and codecs, which is what most of people care about. So that's why it took us a long time, mostly because with mobile and with 4K and 8K and so on, we needed to have hardware decoding by default. And getting that was quite difficult. As our old mentor told us, memcopy is murder. So in VLC 3.0, on all the platforms, we got zero copy decoding and displaying. Like, so we are now finally, the architecture is finally done so that we can just bypass, pass from the decoder to the filters to the video output, just a reference to the frame, and so that we don't have mem copies, and it's so everyone is happy, or almost. The results are quite good. We get 4K on the iPads, we get 8K on the Galaxy Note, so we can have 8K 60 FPS decoding on a phone, just a normal high-end Android phone. The last i7, the last 2 versions also get you 8K with VLC. We have less CPU consumption and GPU consumption than movies and MPCHC. So we have some very good results. We support 360 video. You care about so much because VR is the future, like 3D. But mostly, some more important part is that we support now network shares. So you can actually go and browse your DLNA, UPnP, your Samba shares, your whatever, your FTP. We even have SFTP support for the few people who do that. But also that means, and that was quite difficult because we had to have password management. So now we integrate with your car wallet or your lib secret or your Windows thingy, because we don't want your password inside VLC, because of course VLC is going to crash and you're going to get your secrets leaked. So we don't do that. But we had to do a lot of integration for that. As I said, common code base. We now support 10 bits and 12 bits. Of course, 12 bits there is no display, but we support some kind of HDR using libplacebo from the MPV project, which means that we can do tone mapping correctly for once. Vittorio is going to be happy for once. But if you have a Windows machine with the correct driver and the correct moon and the correct cable and the correct screen, then you can get maybe some crappy UHD HDR correctly pass through. It's going to work someday on other platforms, probably Android first. We spent a lot of time also on HDMI pass-through. For a long time, VLC was not able to do anything else than DTS and Dolby pass-through for audio. That was very problematic for everyone who using VLC as HTPC. So that's fixed because we finally destroyed the stupid architecture we had. Then a lot of new formats. A lot of work on the adaptive streaming because no one wants that. A lot of support on subtitles, so we support TTML, ASMC, or you had the talk before. We even support WebVTT, which got us a CSS engine in VLC. Yeah, we are so happy about that. Web people, if you're around, fuck you. By default, now we're using OpenGL on Linux, and we have a experimental VLAN support. It's of course not perfect, but that's probably because of VLAN. Well, I'm going to pretend, and not us. And also we have a new, and we have also a new subtitling rendering stack done by a Syrian developer. I already talked about that. Refer to my talk last year. Which gave us some. Yes, some support of this language that you all recognize as Maya Layam. The one who did not, please take extra lessons. But yeah, we have a full text rendering engine that is not Qt, that is not GTK or Cairo, that is our own. libVLC, so because it is quite technical crowd, we've done quite a bit of work on libVLC. One of the main reasons is that libVLC is actually the API we use for the mobile port. So we finally added a lot of functions. Demo of directly. That was a bit. Of course, macOS 10.7 and Android from 2.3 and iOS from iOS 7. So that's very large. And this is the last version where we suppose we are going to support all those platforms. 3.0 is going to be a kind of LTS. By LTS, I mean just backports of security issues because we won't maintain it correctly, I'm afraid. But still, they will get at least security updates. Release is supposedly Tuesday and on your stores and so on Thursday when we update the website and we finish all the builds and test them. So, cool, 3.0 is there. What's after? VR. There is a lot of people who talk about VR, and there is a lot of formats. Every camera is doing something different. Every headset is doing something different. Most of the VR apps are using a 500 megabyte download of Unity and so on, and they're all quite shitty. And if you just want to just look at it, it's very difficult. So in 3.0, we supported all the 360 playback on with your touch, with your mouse, with your keyboard, with your clicker. So that's just a normal one. And of course, we had a new 3D ambisonic audio renderer. See my other talks about that. But then some people actually want to play some HMD, and there is still the question of how do we support 3D in VLC, which so far we've not done. So yes. So we are going to work on OpenHMD integration. So we're going to have in the main VLC and in a very simple way, so it's not going to make your VLC 200 meg raise when libav codec finally merged the MVC support. Anton, please. Yeah, good luck, I know. But also, we're going to have a kind of mode that is called virtual theater, which is basically you have your 2D screen inside a kind of sky map, and so it looks like you're in a movie theater. The good thing is that it's going to be a minimal integration, quite simple, and it's not going to change much on the VLC. The changes is mostly on the OpenGL video output. And then we are going to work on integration for Unreal and Unity using the same API lib on FBO passing that we used to do the Kodi demo. So after VR, we're going to do VLC 4.0 called Auto Shriek. Auto Shriek is a vampire photograph, I believe. Please refer to the whole Discworld books if you need. What are we going to do in there? New video architecture, new input and playlist, media library integration, and UI, and dropping platforms. So video output, we discussed about that actually yesterday. We're going to rewrite most of the video output of VLC, because now basically we are using a kind of pool model where you are asking the hardware what it can support, and then we go back upstream to reconfigure everything back to the decoder and put the converters. That was because most of the time the hardware was really shitty and really limited, frame buffers or Xvideo. Now that almost everyone has OpenGL and DirectX 11, we're going to do the other way around, which is pushing the frame from the decoder up to there, and in the end, with hopefully some magic with shaders and liblacebo, we're going to get it better. Which means rewrites most of the video outputs in VLC, which means also probably dropping some of them, which we can do because we're dropping platforms. Vout recycling, so that you don't have this very annoying effect when you move from one video to another one, that sometimes the video output close. It shouldn't happen, but still it happens. When we'll have that, it's going to be easier. Support for 3D and VR, well, that's not that difficult to do side by side in OpenGL. And probably more HDR, because there will be 2 new different formats of HDR this year, or maybe 3 or 4. And then people are going to ask for SDR2 HDR support, and so on and so on. And probably a video filter API in libVLC, finally. Remy promised us. Thank you, Remy. He doesn't know about that yet. Input manager. We're going to rewrite the input, because now in VLC, the audio output and the video output are owned by the playlist, which allows you to get smooth transition. Of course, it's not smooth because it's not done well, between one input to the next one. So we are going to split the playlist and the input manager, which is going to, the input manager is going to own the audio output, the video output, the stream output. And this one is the one who is going to manage the input, and it's just going to know the next input. It's going to simplify a lot the playlist, and this might give us some gapless playback in VLC, or even like crossfading. Wow, for those people who care. But also it's going to simplify a lot of code, because now the playlist of VLC, the VLM of VLC, the media player of the libVLC are doing different stuff, and so everything is going to be at the same place. Which means rewrite of the playlist. We're going to drop the current playlist, which allows trees, and we're going to have a very simple, flat playlist. And this one will have like a one-on-one relationship with an input manager. Media library. We are going to integrate a media library, the one that we have on Android on the desktop. So small details, it's C++ and SQLite. It's going to be quite simple. We are never going to look like Kodi. It's not the goal. And for most people who use correctly VLC, which is double click from Nautilus or Dolphin, it won't change anything, right? This will not be activated when you need. But for the people who need it, then they will just double click, especially on Windows, where there is a lot of requests for audio, playlist, and media. How it's going to look, I have no idea yet, but the idea is to keep it quite fast, or at least fast as possible. So it's not going to be like Amarok. Which brings us to a new UI. This is the current VLC version for Windows Store, UWP. This doesn't mean it's going to look like that. It just means that we should do something better for the media library integration in the playlist. So if you have inputs or ideas, please share them. if you are a designer or if you have like strong opinions on how it should look, if you care about the fight between GNOME and KDE and Wayland about client-side decoration and DWD, please also give me your input. Oh, yes, I forgot. In the input, we're going to rewrite the way the timestamp are going to be managed, because now when you play back with VLC, after the demuxer, between the demuxer and decoders, it rewrites all the timestamps to be closer to your output, which means that if you transcode, then basically you're fucked because all your timestamps are gone. This is going to be a big change. We'll do the first part in VLC 4, and the next part in the next version, and the final part in the version after. But this is going to be quite important to get frame accuracy and correct transcoding. Yes? So as I said, we're going to drop platforms, Windows XP and Vista. The Chinese people are not going to be happy about that. I'm sorry about them. But the problem is that we still have 8% of our traffic on VideoLAN.org that is coming from XP, and that is actually increasing. Yep. macOS 10.7, 8, 9 are going to be dropped like most of the others. I think we kept it longer than most other bigger even projects. On Linux, I think OpenGL is going to be required. Like there won't be any other way around. Sorry, guys. And from Android, we are going finally to drop Android 2.2 and 2.3 and 3.0 and so on. And for iOS, same. iOS 7, 8 are gone. So, what's after that? We have two fun research projects. The first one is VLC.js. And when I mean VLC.js, I'm actually meaning VLC and not like, oh, I'm going to wrap around a few HTML's API. And that is possible because of WebAssembly coming soon. It's a kind of like TS and HLS in JavaScript in order to remix it into MP4 to fit the browsers don't respect correctly the MP4 stack and the MP4 specification. So the idea is to get VLC running directly inside the web browsers, and that's possible with WebAssembly and threads. Currently, we did a work on that. We have something working on Firefox with ASM.js and pthread. So not with WebAssembly because WebAssembly doesn't support threads yet. It's going to come last June. And I wish I wanted to give you a demo, but I can't give you a demo because I upgraded my Firefox and they disabled shared array buffers because of the Spectre security issue. But if you look at my talk that was recorded at what was it? At FORMS, you could see the demo, and I can give you the pages for the people who care. We managed to play normal WMV video, you know, the wildlife video, the one from Windows. So I really show that it's not possible that it's decoded by the web browser. Actually works fine. Even on my machine, 720p H.264 was easy. And we were talking of like everything done in ASM.js, right? So no ASM.js, nothing else. Will it go on? Yeah, probably. Some people from Chrome said that they were open to discussing of having the hardware decoding exposed directly. And as we were outputting with WebGL and off-screen surfaces, that was actually quite performance. The problem is mostly audio output, because if anyone has tried web audio, sorry about that. It's completely insane. There's basically no way to have like just a simple sync and give PCM and get the information back from how much has actually been playback, like any other audio API. You have like awesome 3D filters in web audios and amazing filters and so on, but the basic is not there. So we'll see. Another project we're working on is sandboxing. One of the reasons for sandboxing is that basically VLC and all the multimedia frameworks have so much shit in it, right? And so one of the good ways is to put everything inside a sandbox, right? But if you do that, then VLC is going to ask for access to your graphic card, which means basically kernel mode. It's going to give you access to your audio, and so on and so on. And in the end, you check all the boxes from the sandbox, which means basically your sandbox is useless. We don't need GPS, but I'm sure with some MP4 craziness where we need a map of the location of the filming, it will be required. So this is difficult. What we are looking at is doing the kind of things that Chrome did, which is having the access, the demuxer, and the decoder in different processes, and do shared memory sharing in a cross-platform way. Yeah, I see some people are laughing. It's going to be difficult. If people have ideas, it would be very nice. We have a demo of that, which is just based on ptrace and about in threads. Yes, I know. My time is up, and as Christophe says, and that's good because I've finished. Any questions?
Any question? I have a mic. Don't be afraid. Do you want 5 more minutes? No. Yes.
Which HDR formats you support now?
What do you mean by?
I mean, PQ, HLG.
So the question was which HDR formats, right? So far, and I mean in the normal way of HDR, the only way we support that is Windows 10, and that is only HDR10, right? Wow, that's noisy. When we do tone mapping with HDR10, it's limited to Liplay Sebo. It's doing now HDR10. It should be able to do HDR10 plus, and I think HLG should be easy to do. I don't know exactly, but if you want, you can ask Jan. He will tell you. But basically, as tone mapping, it's easy, right? The problem with when you're not in tone mapping is that you need to actually discuss that on the HTML link, which we don't have access to, so you need the driver support. And that's so far only on Windows 10 and Android, and only on selected devices on Android. So far it's very annoying. Yes?
I was to be able to find VLC on the F-Droid repository. And last week I didn't see it anymore. Is that something in the F-Droid project?
Yes, they don't want to build it because it's too difficult.
Oh.
But they want to build Kodi. They don't want to build Kodi as well. Good luck.
I'm sorry guys, but we helped them. We gave them Dockers. We built it on Jenkins. They could pull it. We helped them to get a special way of, like, Hugo helped them. They don't want it because it's too difficult, because it breaks so much. But I mean, it's a distribution that doesn't want to distribute. What can I do, right? We check that VLC is using the least amount of permissions we need. We drop them down in the last release. We have no trackers, nothing. So we're like really clean. It's not like Firefox issue on F-Droid. They just don't want to build it. And their only solution is, oh, you could do a repository. Yeah, but then the user needs to go and click and add the repository. No one is going to do that. You've done your best. I don't know what I can do more. I can even give them like versions that are built on the release billboard but not signed, so they can check and sign with their own keys if they want. So far they're just like, no. So sorry.
One last.
Raspberry Pi. It's working on Raspberry Pi, but user interface has some problems. Did you find some better solutions? Because usually the output, when you are using the hardware acceleration, then you have less space over for the user interface.
So on Raspberry Pi, I think we fixed the ML acceleration, hardware acceleration, and video output display. It's quite difficult to build for Raspberry Pi, to be honest. But it should work now correctly. but the problem you're referring is a problem between Qt and mal fighting against each other. And so we've been starting to look at that with 2 of the community members, and we'll probably backport that for 3.0. But I don't think the big issue is fixed, especially in full screen when you have something above it.
Thank you, Jibei.
Thank you. If you have any other questions, I'm around. Follow the cones, and there is a booth where you have big prize to win in the 2nd level of K.